Now we move on. Munich airport has experienced disruptions once again after drone sightings for the second time in less than 24 hours. Both runways were closed on Friday evening, leading to cancelled flights and police helicopters monitoring the area. The airport had already been closed late Thursday night, following similar unconfirmed drone sightings affecting dozens of flights. German air traffic control has said that operations were suspended as a precaution until further notice. Passengers on cancelled flights were informed that takeoff and landing runways were blocked due to drone activity. Recent weeks have seen European aviation chaos following drone sightings, with some authorities suggesting a possible connection to Russia, which Kremlin denies. German Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt has promised new legislation to make it easier for police to authorize the military to shoot down drones. Now for this discussion, we go back to our guest, Professor Rohan Gunaratne. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from Singapore. Thank you, Professor, for staying with us. Now, how's this growing number of drone sightings across Europe, especially these two news just coming in within 24 hours, impacting the development of new security measures and defense measures in Europe?
Asuma, it is a very profound development because it is not only in Munich, Germany, but also in Denmark, in Poland, in a number of other countries. We have seen these drones appearing. And of course, the suspicion is that the Russians are doing this to intimidate the NATO bloc of countries. Of course, the governments are meeting, the security and intelligence services are meeting of Europe to discuss how to move forward. But it is very likely, according to the European security and intelligence briefing, that the Russians are behind this and that they are doing this because they want to exercise their overwhelming authority and power to show that they are dominant and they can pose a threat to Europe's security and stability in the lead up to the Trump meeting in Moscow. So I personally believe that this challenge will have to be handled very carefully by Europe so that it will not lead to an escalation of conflict between Europe and Russia.
Yes, and looking back at this, how can European countries collaborate to create standardized regulations and response protocols for drone-related disruptions?
Firstly, these drone presence have disrupted their aviation, the regular aviation travel. So they need to develop a system where they develop certain protocols where they are able to maintain the aviation without disruption. But this is something very difficult for them to do, but it is something they have to do. But of course, the bigger picture is that Europe must normalize its relations with Russia. Most recently, we have seen a threat to Russia, according to the Russians, according to President Putin, that is the Americans giving Tomahawk missiles to the Ukrainians. But also other European countries are arming Ukraine in a very significant way. So until and unless this bigger dispute between Europe, between Ukraine and Russia is resolved, I believe that these drone incursions and disruption to aviation will take place throughout Europe. Of course, this will not be tolerated by some European countries. A few countries will tolerate it. So I believe that there may be also some kind of retaliation on the part of the European nations.
Yes, Professor, I agree with you. It seems like this is not the first and not the last such incident that we are hearing coming in from Europe. So looking at Europe, given the slower pace of defense decision making in democratic countries there compared to other regimes, how can Europe accelerate its defense investments and cooperation without compromising their values for democratic governance?
Europe is building a very strong military capability. At some point, they may even become independent of the US military assistance, because the European military industry has started to ramp up and they are developing their capabilities to confront Russia. And whether we like it or not, the current set of events, such as the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Russian interference and interventions in other countries, Russian not only overt operations but covert operations have increased very significantly, including espionage. So what we are seeing is that Europe and Russia is heading towards a confrontation. And to prevent this, it is so important for President Putin and President Trump to meet, because both these leaders have built a good relationship. The Alaska meeting did very well, and I hope that the Moscow meeting will pave the way for a de-escalation and for restoration of ties. Between these two blocks of countries, the Russians and the Europeans and the Americans, there should be cooperation and collaboration and partnership, not confrontation and conflict.
Yes, indeed. And thank you very much, Professor Rohan Gunaratna, for joining us and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on and we stay in Asia. North Korea commemorated its National Foundation Day, honoring the legendary founding of the first Korean kingdom by King Tangun over 4,000 years ago. Officials and citizens gathered at the mausoleum of King Tangun in Pyongyang, taking part in traditional rituals to celebrate the nation's ancient origins. The holiday, also observed in South Korea, marks the legendary beginnings of the Korean people and remains a significant cultural event in the peninsula. Now, this is all we have time for.